Okay, so this is what it's frustrating when I watch the show because like every 5 minutes I'm hearing something that's just factually incorrect.
Hey, this is Ryan of Happy Healthy Vegan. So I hope you saw my previous video where we showed how James Wilks responded to point by point by point every criticism, everything that Chris Kresser said about B12 with regard to the Game Changers movies was wrong. And literally, watch my video. I'll put the link down below and the card up above, and you'll see how Chris had to admit time and time again he was wrong. So on this video, we're going to move on to protein. And this was a huge discussion. It took up maybe like 40 odd minutes of the podcast. And it's so huge, I'm going to have to break this down into two. Here, I'm going to talk about protein quantity and calories. And again, show how everything that Chris said was wrong point by point, and even have, you'll see Chris admit many times that he was wrong. So first of all, let's start off by going back to the episode where Chris was alone with Joe Rogan and see what Chris had to say about peanut butter and protein.
For the peanut butter sandwich thing, it was like there's the same amount of protein in a peanut butter sandwich as there is in 3 ounces of beef. So I looked up the data, of course. So 3 ounces of 90% lean ground beef has 24 grams of protein. You get 2 slices of wheat bread. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt that it's whole wheat and not white bread. That's 5 grams.
Actually, Chris, there's no benefit of any doubt needed to be given here. In the movie, they showed the sandwich, this peanut butter sandwich, and it uses wheat bread. And James brings up this point, too.
That's the sandwich we showed in the film, whole wheat bread, peanut butter.
1 tablespoon of peanut butter is 4 grams. So you'd have to have 5 tablespoons of peanut butter in that sandwich to equal 3 ounces of beef.
I didn't have to wait for James Wilks to say anything. I made my own response to Chris Kresser's math here, which is way off. And I'll link to that again down in the show notes and up in a card. And furthermore, on a podcast that Chris made at around the same time, he repeated this myth about needing 5 tablespoons of peanut butter to get the same amount of protein.
For a peanut butter sandwich to have the same quantity of protein, not even addressing the quality of protein issue, which we will shortly, but just for a peanut butter sandwich to have the same amount of protein as 3 ounces of beef, which is a very small portion of beef. You know, most people eat more beef than that when they eat beef, or 3 eggs. You'd have to use 5 tablespoons of peanut butter. Okay, so that's 1/3 of a cup of peanut butter. I mean, this is really disingenuous, and it kind of sets the tone for the film because they play very fast and loose with the science, and they make a lot of misleading statements, a lot of half-truths, a lot of things that, you know, for the average person who doesn't have a background in this stuff might pass muster.
It's so ironic that Chris said that because, as I showed and James shows here on the Joe Rogan podcast in front of Chris, that Chris is the one that plays really loose and fast with the science and the numbers, and James calls him out on that.
So there was just so much wrong with what you said that I just had to go into every single topic. But anyway.
So to make sure everyone's on the same page here and knows exactly what James said in the movie about peanut butter, beef, eggs, and protein, James reminds them what he said.
1 cup of cooked lentils or a peanut butter sandwich has about as much protein as 3 ounces of beef or 3 large eggs. That was what I said.
Okay.
I might be off on a word, but that was what I said.
Okay.
I said about as much protein. So you go on to say 3 ounces of 90% lean ground beef. Well, already what you did is you picked leaner beef.
Speaking of disingenuous, did you all see what Chris Kresser did there? In the movie, James said 3 ounces of beef. No particular kind of beef, just beef. But Chris, to get the protein numbers inflated in his favor, he chose 90% lean ground beef, which he said had, for 3 ounces, 24 grams of protein. And I'm not getting that. When I went to Chronometer, I got 22.5 grams of protein.
But, you know, even though you don't advocate for that, you don't think that animal fat is bad. So what you did is you picked the leanest beef. Anyway, you say, the point of this thing was not to say this is the best foods to eat. It was just say like these regular,
making a comparison.
The regular stuff that you eat, like a peanut butter sandwich, people think no protein at all, right? They think, you know, people think that plants have no protein.
Yes, I made this exact same point when I responded to Chris's debunking of the Game Changers. Again, the point is really simple, that a peanut butter sandwich or a cup of lentils, foods that are really easy to understand and make, foods that most people probably already eat, you can get the same amount of protein as you can from 3 ounces of beef.
You admit that a tablespoon of peanut butter is 4 grams, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And what is 4 times 5?
20.
Right.
So now James is doing the math in front of Chris's face to show him how this 5 tablespoons of peanut butter claim that Chris has been making is completely absurd. So yeah, we have 4 grams of protein per tablespoon of peanut butter times 5 tablespoons of peanut butter. So now we're up to 20 grams of protein, and let's continue on with the math.
And then per USDA, how much is 1 piece of whole wheat bread?
4 or 5, depending on the source you look at.
I agree. How many pieces of bread? 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so 5 grams of protein in bread.
Okay.
So 5 plus 5 is, Chris?
10.
Plus 20 from the peanut butter is?
30.
So we all follow that math there. 5 tablespoons, 5 absurd tablespoons of peanut butter is 20 grams of protein, plus 5 grams of protein for each of the 2 slices of whole wheat bread, which gives us 30 grams of protein. 30 grams. So why did Chris do this mathematics? Why 30 grams of protein? Because 30 grams does not equal 24 grams of protein for that super lean slice of ground beef, and James calls him out on this.
Well, even on the leanest beef that you chose, it was 24 grams. Why did you say you needed 5 tablespoons of peanut butter? So why did 24 grams of your hand-picked lean beef, which you don't even necessarily, there's no reason that you should be picking that when that's not what we showed in the film. Why are you comparing 24 grams to 30 grams? Why didn't you say 4 tablespoons of peanut butter? Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Got it wrong again.
So the bottom line is you don't need 5 tablespoons of peanut butter and 2 slices of wheat bread to get the same amount of protein as you would from 3 ounces of regular beef, as we'll see. More like 2 or 2.5 tablespoons of peanut butter, which is a more than adequate sandwich.
And I almost bought a peanut butter sandwich in here today to show you what 2 tablespoons of peanut butter looks like, or 2.5. Because the one I had, I looked at it, and it's surprising, when you actually measure a real tablespoon, it's actually not that much peanut butter. Anyway,
White bread would be more like 2 or 3 grams.
Yeah,
protein.
but again,
It's kind of tough to hear Chris's soft voice there, but out of the blue, he just blurted out, well, if you'd use white bread, you'd only have 2 or 3 grams of protein per slice. And James is like, what are you talking about? We never ever mentioned white bread. We clearly talked about wheat bread in the film. Where's this white bread nonsense coming from?
we showed a piece of whole wheat bread on there. We're advocating eating mostly whole foods. That's a whole grain.
So anyway, now let's have James prove his point about how there's the same amount of protein in a peanut butter sandwich, a cup of cooked lentils, and 3 ounces of ground beef, and 3 eggs.
1 slice of bread, 5 grams of protein. And you accepted that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. The peanut butter, 2 tablespoons, 8 grams. You accepted that.
There we go.
So you agree that 18 grams of protein for the peanut butter. That's the sandwich we showed in the film, whole wheat bread, peanut butter.
So peanut butter sandwich with 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, 18 grams.
Now we look at lentils, 1 cup, 17.9 grams of protein. That is USDA again. Would you accept that?
Yeah, I haven't looked at this, but
I mean,
yeah,
I know that in the large, you can on the left side, 1 cup.
I accept USDA as this, absolutely.
Okay.
So 1 cup of cooked lentils, 17.9, let's call it 18 grams of protein.
But so far we've had a peanut butter sandwich with only 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. And seriously, you try that at home, Joe. Like actually measure it with a measuring.
Yeah,
tablespoon.
well, I talked about it in the podcast. So I would probably have about 5.
Okay, so
James has made it absolutely clear that this 2 tablespoon peanut butter sandwich and a cup of cooked lentils has about the same amount of protein as 3 large eggs. Now let's compare this to some ground beef, not the 90% lean ground beef that Chris conveniently chose, just standard organic ground beef, and see how they all compare.
Standard organic ground beef.
3 ounces.
So 3 ounces is 17.5
grams.
grams. If you want to get into it, we can get into
So James didn't make a big deal about it here, but he could have, because it's actually lower. Regular organic ground beef has fewer grams of protein than the 2 plant food options he just mentioned, namely that peanut butter sandwich. So take that, Chris Kresser. Furthermore, James covers his bases because he knows Chris is an advocate of grass-fed beef. So let's see how the peanut butter sandwich and the cooked lentils compare to Chris's grass-fed beef.
And then, to be fair, because I knew you'd bring up a grass-fed beef, so that I found the lowest and the highest. 3 ounces, this is on the very low end, so this would probably be the fattiest meat. But you wouldn't be against animal fat, right?
Not typically.
So lowest, 14.4. On the highest end, 18 grams.
So did you catch that? Grass-fed beef, Chris's favorite, at its best, is equal to the peanut butter sandwich and the lentils, and at its worst, significantly less protein than the plant-based option. So,
okay, so peanut butter sandwich, 18 grams, lentils, 17.9. Can we round that up?
Yeah.
3 eggs, 18 grams.
3 ounces of beef, 18 grams at best.
So you can find protein that's got higher. I said about. I was trying to show that, dispel the myth that plants have no protein and animal foods have all this protein.
So I think it's plainly obvious to anyone with any rational thought that James proved his point here, that the 2 plant-based protein options had about the same amount of protein as 3 large eggs or 3 ounces of beef. Yes, he admitted if you try to really play with the numbers and find the most lean possible cuts of beef, which he was not talking about in the movie, yeah, you can get a little bit more protein out of that 3 ounces, but he clearly proved his point here. And now let's move on to the next criticism that Chris Kresser had about eating all this peanut butter. It's going to be way too many calories compared to having beef.
His second point was the problem with the peanut butter sandwich, to get 18 grams of protein, I think this is a fair point, you would have to eat 410 calories. I love that people like to point out the beef and then the peanut butter sandwich and try and compare those. Even though we were right on the protein, now you're trying to pick on the calories. Lentils, for 18 grams of protein, again, if you want to check this calculation, stop at any time, I'm fine. I have had this triple checked. Okay, 18 grams of protein, 231 calories.
Which is about the same for beef.
Which is about 210 calories. Mm-hmm. Grass-fed beef in the first instance, 275 calories. And that was on the one that wasn't so lean. And 70% lean beef. And I'm just pointing out there's different ranges. 417 calories for 18 grams of protein, right? So fatty meat, which you don't think like the animal fat is bad, right?
No.
Okay.
Again, to use Chris's word disingenuous, Chris was not happy about how you would have to consume 410 calories to get that 18 grams of protein from the peanut butter sandwich. Well, compared to this fatty cut of grass-fed beef, there's 417 calories to get that 18 grams of protein.
There was more protein percentage-wise in my peanut butter sandwich than there was in the green beef. And then not the last one. Yeah, we could have picked something with less calories. So if we picked tempeh, for example, 170 calories.
Smart move there, James, bringing up how tempeh only requires you to consume 170 calories to get 18 grams of protein. If calories is such an issue, and it wasn't even really what you were talking about in that part of the movie at all. It was all about how eating regular plant foods, normal regular servings of them, can get you the same amount of protein as eating beef or eggs.
You just can't get as much for you just can't get as much in that serving. They're totally wrong. You'd have to have 5 tablespoons of peanut butter. Totally wrong. Agree?
Agree that you don't have to have 5 tablespoons.
Right, thank you. And then you also said that you'd have to have so many calories that you couldn't get it, and you were wrong again. Agree?
Why are you even hesitating for here, Chris? I mean, do you do math, brah? James has just shown using basic, simple arithmetic that you're clearly wrong. You don't have to consume way more calories when consuming plant foods to get your 18 grams of protein compared to getting those grams of protein from animal foods. In fact, you can consume tempeh, as James showed here, and consume significantly fewer calories if that's what you're looking for. But anyway, once again, James has shown Chris to be wrong on virtually every point he brought up here about protein quantity and calories, just like James did in my previous video where I broke down how James pointed out everything Chris said was wrong about B12. And I thought I was going to be able to, in this video, this one I'm making right here, also talk about protein quality, but I'm already pretty far deep into this video, so I'm going to save that for next time because that's also a really interesting discussion where Chris got pretty much everything wrong once again. So anyway, leave your questions and comments down below. Do you want to see me keep going on? Because I can, because this is fascinating. I know a lot of you guys said you appreciate this. You don't have time to watch, for almost 4 hours the original podcast. And it's cool for me to go back and watch these clips again on repeat and just get more of the arguments that are being made here. Because when you watch it, over 3.5 hours, a lot of stuff goes right past. So I'm learning more myself watching and making these videos for you guys. So many questions and comments down below. What do you think about all of Chris's errors here? Is he being disingenuous? And share the video with the Chris Kresser fans. Share this video with fellow vegans and plant-based eaters to show them all the nonsense I've been saying about Chris Kresser is true. Not that I ever doubted it, but now we have someone else like James Wilks backing me up. So until next time, guys, remember, let's vote vegan. Yes, I'm running for City Council in Long Beach, District 2. If you live in Long Beach, you can vote for me next year in March. And if you live anywhere in the United States, you can contribute to my campaign. Please, everyone, go check out my website, ryanlum.net.
Spinning round and round, spinning till I'm dizzy, falling to the ground. You've got me spinning circles round